On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of good communication and also being ghosted by candidates and clients.
So ghosting is a recruiter's pet peeve. It's something we deal with all the time. So ghosting is when you suddenly, out of the blue, without seeing it coming, receive no further communication from a candidate or a client. So to start off, we're going to talk about it from the perspective of a candidate. So it's something that happens all the time, probably on a daily basis in some regards.
Definitely.
So just initially, let's discuss how we can avoid a candidate ghosting us. So Lizzie, do you want to kick us off?
So I think to avoid it, it's really sort of setting out the boundaries when you're dealing with your candidates. So sort of saying to them exactly when you're going to be available, really setting sort of time boundaries of when they can expect to hear from you. So for example, obviously if we have like an initial pre-screen with a candidate, talk to them about a job and they want to be put forward for it, we're very much like, okay, that's fine. We'll put you forward to the client and I will be in touch with you by 5 p.m. tomorrow to let you know the outcome and to give you some feedback. And it's really important that us as recruiters stick to those timings.
Yes.
Because when we set the bar of not sticking to what we've promised, our candidates are like, oh, okay, they're not really that bothered. So we're going to reciprocate that sort of behaviour. So I think always sort of set boundaries and deadlines and sort of pop your candidate on a clear direction of how you expect the communication to be delivered.
Definitely. And I think as well, going alongside that, I think you do need to open up the channels of communication with the candidate because, you know, say if you're recruiting for a role where it wouldn't really be phone heavy, so the candidate you're dealing with, they might be really, really good at the job, but they might be absolutely terrified of being on the phone, which is fine because the job they're doing, you know, that won't require it. But, you know, they need to be able to have those conversations with you. So, you know, you might have to say to them, look, I understand you don't like talking on the phone. How about we WhatsApp, or how about we text, or how about we email? So I think just find out, you know, what works for them, because they could be the perfect fit for a job. But if you're like, no, you have to call me at this time, you know, the anxiety might get in the way and they might just never contact you again because they're absolutely terrified of you.
100%. And I think that's the thing, when you make yourself like this big sort of looming figure, like I need to speak to you at this time, and it becomes really impending for some people, and they're like, no, I don't want to do it. And because it is a bit more like chill speaking on WhatsApp and email and stuff, and because we are very much like friendly, we're here to help you, we can do that more informal thing. At the end of the day, we're not the client.
Exactly.
It's not like you're gonna but on the flip side of that, there is also the school of thought that you have to kind of realise you will have to speak on the phone at some point. You will have to come face to face with your potential new employer. But obviously, to start with, to sort of keep that communication line open, you sort of tell us how you want to talk. Yeah. And we'll very much adopt. I mean, I hold my hands up. I don't always adopt this mantra, but like innocent until proven guilty. Yeah. Everyone has stuff going on. If you haven't replied to me a couple of times, I will give you the benefit of the doubt if you come back to me and you're like, I'm really sorry, I've had this go on, I've had that go on, but I'm sort of ready to move forward, then that's great. But just sort of be open and honest, I think definitely is the biggest thing.
And I think as well, you need to explain the urgency of recruitment to a candidate. Obviously, a lot of them do want to get in a job ASAP, but they may not realise that if they don't communicate with you or they ghost you for 3 days, that opportunity could get filled and it could be boxed off with someone else. So they might think, oh, that recruiter's trying to call me, I'll call them back on Friday. And they might say that on Monday, but by Friday, the job could be filled. It might not be there. So I think, you know, to sort of stop that from happening, if you say to the candidate, hey, look, I think you could be a really good fit for this job. You know, I want to have that second call with you to delve in deeper. When can we do it? Can we do it tomorrow? Like, which day is good for you? Bearing in mind, I've got other candidates in the mix and the company are looking to get moving on this fast, just so they know, oh, right, okay, you know, it's not like I can just take my time, have a think, and they'll be waiting for me. Yeah, it's like, definitely. No, if you want it, you need to act fast.
And it's really, like you say, really building it up into a big thing, because it is a big thing. Like the jobs are getting filled so quickly. And it is being like there isn't time to hang around, and creating that sense of urgency with your candidates will really spur that on. And I do find if you're really sort of bigging up the candidate's CV to them, like, you'd be incredible, you'd be so good at this, I can really see that this skill would be like such a good fit, then your candidate's there and they're like, I've got this job, I'm going to be incredible. But if you do sort of hype up and really sort of make that connection, then they're more likely to sort of buy into the process that you're going to take them on.
Exactly. And I think as well, if you are nice to them, and if you do connect with them, and you do build that rapport with them, you know, if something does pop up that is genuine, if you know, there is a family emergency, or if, say, but for us, we're left wondering, like, what happened? Like, what went wrong?
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point, because we're very much sometimes quite easy to jump and blame the candidates, like, you've ghosted us, blah, blah, blah. But it's up to us as recruiters to really build the foundation of that relationship.
Create a safe space for them to
talk and to sort of be able to feel like you can text, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm ill, or blah, 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 or be able to be open and honest. But that relationship isn't going to happen if we're picking up the phone, saying we found their CV, taking a few basic details and then shoving them into the client. There's no relationship there. So then your candidates are going to ghost you because they don't know you. They're not invested in you. They don't care. Like, because it's a competitive market. There's so many agencies after all the jobs going out there. So as a recruiter, you've really got to make yourself care and really get invested into your candidates for them to reciprocate it in the same way.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, even if you follow all of those things that we've mentioned, you know, it is sort of inevitable. There will be situations where you are ghosted.
Course,
so what is your advice then to a fellow recruiter if they are ghosted?
So if you're being ghosted and you know what happens, you see the blue ticks and you're like, here we go. that emotional roller coaster's beginning. One of the tips that sort of our manager gave us was saying to the candidate, look, I'm getting feedback from my client. Can you call me at 10 a.m. tomorrow? I'm putting the onus on the candidate to do the footwork and saying, can you call me at 10 a.m. tomorrow? If they call you, okay, they're showing commitment. If they don't, I'm sorry, but maybe that's it. If it's come to the end of the road, I would say obviously try different channels. But at the end of the day, if it gets to the point where you're harassing them, they're never going to answer anyway. And at that point, if you feel like you are continuously calling and texting and emailing, the candidate's probably not interested anymore. So it's kind of giving it up. And I know you made a really good point, Roni, about always, even however much they may have annoyed you by ghosting you, always end it on a good note and send them a lovely little message saying, unfortunately, I'll have to withdraw you, but I wish you the best of luck for your future endeavours.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to keep that good connection, because obviously if we're engaging with them in the first place, it's because we think they're a good candidate. We think they can do the job. So we want to keep that relationship going. It might just be, you know, this wasn't the time for them, or maybe something really did pop up that they couldn't, or, you know, something came up at work, or maybe they got anxious about, you know, moving and going to an interview and changing jobs. So, you know, you do have to keep that, I think, communication open with them, even when they have stopped communicating, and just say, hey, you know, I understand this didn't work out. You know, you've got my number. Feel free to call me, you know, when you're back in the market, or if anything changes. And, you know, sometimes they will actually reach back out to you, you know, months down the line, say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, a few months ago, obviously it didn't work out. I had things going on, but, you know, now I'm back. I'm really ready to commit. So, you know, if they're a good candidate and you want to keep that communication, don't be aggressive with them. Don't let your emotions get a hold of you, and
never burn any bridges.
exactly. You know, it is frustrating for us, and it can be frustrating for the client as well if they've really, you know, sort of bought into that candidate. But it is just the way it goes. You know, that is recruitment for you, and I think you just have to learn how to manage that, and I think just go in with open expectations, like, this candidate's good, but if they drop out, what am I going to do? So you need to have backup candidates. You need to just make sure that you are prepared.
Until that candidate is literally offered over the line in that thing on the first day. Even then. And nothing is set in stone. And I think as a recruiter, you've just got to make sure you're doing everything you can from a communication perspective to really sort of build your foundations, follow up with your candidates, make sure that you're making the journey as clear as possible to them. And then, like you say, just ride that recruitment roller coaster.
Absolutely. And obviously, unfortunately, you know, ghosting doesn't just happen with candidates, it does happen with clients as well. And it can be a little bit more difficult to manage when it is with clients, but there are certain things you can do. For example, getting interview slots in advance. So sometimes it won't even be that a client is ghosting, it's just that, you know, they are busy people, hence why they're needing to recruit. They need that help on board. So, you know, you might send across a CV and they might not get back to you for a week, and you think, right, they've ghosted me.
Yeah.
But you are on their to-do list. It's just at the bottom of the to-do list. So I think to sort of manage that potential ghosting or the communication issues with a client, you know, when you go and see them, when you have that initial chat with them, say, look, could you open up your diary now? Could you give me a day where you can give me 4 slots, 4 times, and we will put some candidates in there for you to see. I think that is the best way to manage it.
Because that is then getting a commitment from your client straight away.
Yes.
And I think also it shows the client a bit of assertiveness.
Yeah.
And they're not like, oh, it's another silly little agency. Because as much as we hate it, recruitment agencies are a lot of the time seen as pests, and they don't want to be dealt with. But if you're out there and you're on a good visit and you're getting on really well with your client, to turn around and really sort of take control of that and be like, look, we want to take over your diary, let's book in these candidates. And then, like you say, explaining that to the client is, otherwise you're going to lose the candidates because of how quickly everything's moving. Good candidates are not hanging around. So if you're a client and we're out on a visit and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can give you that, or I don't know if I can open my diary, you're going to lose the candidates, basically.
And I think as well, you know, we said it for candidates, but the same goes for clients. You know, you do need to find out how they like to communicate. You know, they might have a completely full inbox and they won't see if you're sending CVs over. So, you know, find out, you know, how's best for me to reach you. If, you know, if I've got a good candidate, do you want me to email it to you, or do you want me to call you and talk through their profile? So, you know, when you have that initial chat, when you go on that visit, say to them, look, I know you're a busy person. How can I help with our communication? How can I streamline it? Where is best to contact you? And even when is best to contact you? They might say, you know, I spend the last hour of my day doing admin. That's when you should reach me. Or I've always got meetings between 9 and 12. Don't try and contact me then.
Definitely. And some people will say, like, don't be afraid to sort of chase me on it. Because like you say, if you're dealing, especially if you're dealing with the higher senior levels, their inboxes are filling up. Like, they have emails, like everyone's email inbox, you get spam, you get all sorts just coming in, so it can be easily missed. And I'd say, I mean, as being fairly new in recruitment myself, it can sometimes be a bit daunting to be ringing your managing director like, could you check those CVs for me? But it's something that has to be done, because sometimes it can jog the memory and it can be the difference between getting your candidate seen.
Definitely. And I think another communication problem that, you know, can be a thing between client and recruiter is them not giving enough when they are communicating. You know, you might send across CV, they might reply to you quickly, but they might just reply quickly saying no. Or they might say yes. But either way, you know, whether they want to see a candidate or not, you need to know why. You know, what does this candidate have? What don't they have? So that you can really tailor your next CVs, your next, you know, short list of candidates to what they like. Because obviously you will get a spec from them, you will have a conversation with them, you will find out the ins and outs, but you cannot apply that to a CV, to a real person, until you've got that feedback from that first one. So, you know, it's important for clients to make sure they're telling you everything that they like and don't like. So if you are a recruiter, you know, and they come back to you and say no, say, oh, well, have you got 5 minutes for me to pick your brains? Can we have a chat about this profile?
Or can we do a service review? And
Exactly. So I think that's just my final point, really. Just, you know, with the client and with the candidate, it's all about communication. It's about finding out how they like to communicate, when they like to communicate, and just making sure that you've built that connection with them so that they feel comfortable to communicate.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Next week, we will be focusing on the current trends within the recruitment market.